A dog disrupts a solemn funeral. Chaos erupts. What did it sense? The truth will leave you speechless. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the cemetery. A gentle breeze rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of fresh-cut grass and flowers. Mourners gathered around a polished mahogany coffin, their faces etched with grief. Among them stood Max, a loyal German shepherd, his head bowed as if he too understood the weight of the moment. His owner, Sarah, clutched his leash tightly, her knuckles white with emotion. "It's time," the priest announced softly, his voice barely carrying over the whisper of the wind. As the coffin began its slow descent into the earth, something changed. Max's ears perked up, his body tensed. Sarah felt the leash go taut. Max's eyes fixed on the coffin, unwavering. A low growl rumbled in his chest. "Sure, boy," Sarah whispered, tugging gently on the leash. But Max wouldn't budge. The mourners shifted uneasily, exchanging confused glances. The priest paused, clearing his throat. "Perhaps we should," he began, but his words were cut short by a sharp bark. Max lunged forward, nearly pulling Sarah off her feet. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Control your dog," someone hissed. But Max was beyond control. He strained against his leash, barking frantically at the coffin. Sarah's face flushed with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," she stammered, struggling to hold Max back. "He's never acted like this before." The funeral director stepped forward, his brow furrowed with concern. "Ma'am, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to leave if—" Another bark, louder this time. Max's paws scrabbled at the edge of the grave, sending dirt cascading onto the polished wood below. "Wait!" A voice called out. It was Tom, the deceased brother. His eyes were wide, a mix of confusion and something else. "Hope!" "Let him go," Tom said, his voice trembling. Sarah hesitated, then unclipped the leash. In a flash, Max was at the coffin, pawing frantically at the lid. The crowd watched in stunned silence. What was happening? Had grief driven this poor animal mad? But then a sound, faint at first, barely audible over Max's whines. It grew louder, unmistakable, a muffled thump, coming from inside the coffin. Time seemed to stand still. The mourners held their breath, unable to process what they were hearing. Tom rushed forward, his hands shaking as he reached for the coffin lid. "It can't be," he whispered. The funeral director tried to intervene. "Sir, please, this is highly irregular." But Tom was beyond reason. With trembling fingers, he unlatched the lid and slowly, agonizingly, lifted it open. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Inside the coffin, pale and disoriented but unmistakably alive, lay Tom's brother John. John blinked in the sudden light, his voice hoarse as he croaked. What happened?" Chaos erupted. People screamed, some fainted. Others rushed forward in disbelief. Paramedics were called, and as they carefully lifted John from the coffin, the truth began to emerge. John had been in a deep coma, mistaken for dead. The doctors had missed the faintest signs of life, but Max had known. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she hugged her faithful companion. "You knew," she whispered. "You knew all along." In the days that followed, John's miraculous revival became a media sensation. Doctors were baffled, forced to re-examine their procedures. But amidst the medical debates and public frenzy, one hero stood quietly by, Max. The loyal dog became a symbol of hope, a reminder that sometimes the bonds of love transcend our understanding. John, once he recovered, couldn't stop talking about the debt he owed to this incredible animal. "I was lost in darkness," he said in an interview, his voice choked with emotion. "But somehow, Max found me. He brought me back." Sarah and Max became regular visitors at the hospital where John recovered, bringing comfort to other patients and their families. The story of the dog who sensed life, where others saw only death, touched hearts around the world. And as for Max, He received more than just treats and belly rubs. He was hailed as a hero, reminder to us all that sometimes faith, love, and a little bit of canine intuition can work miracles. In a world that often feels dark and uncertain, Max showed us that hope can come from the most unexpected places. All we need to do is listen and believe. But this extraordinary tale was far from over. As John recovered in the hospital, surrounded by a whirlwind of media attention and medical professionals, Max's story began to take on a life of its own. The German Shepherd, once just a beloved family pet, had become an overnight sensation. News crews camped outside Sarah's modest suburban home, hoping to catch a glimpse of the heroic canine. Social media exploded with hashtag Max the Miracle Dog trending worldwide. People from all walks of life were captivated by the story of unwavering loyalty and inexplicable intuition. Sarah, overwhelmed by the sudden attention, found herself thrust into the role of Max's spokesperson. "I always knew Max was special," she told reporters, her voice wavering with emotion. "But this is beyond anything I could have imagined." As the days passed, more details emerged about the fateful day at the cemetery. Eyewitnesses recounted how Max's behavior had changed dramatically as soon as the funeral procession arrived. "It was like he was possessed," one mourner recalled. "His eyes never left that coffin. It was unsettling." John, still weak but improving daily, shared his own perspective from inside the coffin. "I don't remember much," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I do remember a voice. No, not a voice. A presence. Something calling to me, urging me to fight, to come back." Experts from various fields weighed in on the phenomenon. Veterinary behaviors spoke of dogs' incredible sensory abilities, their capacity to detect minute changes in human physiology. Some even suggested that Max might have picked up on subtle vibrations or chemical signals that eluded human perception. Paranormal investigators, seizing on the story's more mystical elements, proposed theories about animal spirit connections and the blurring of life and death. "We've long known that animals can sense things beyond our understanding," one expert claimed. "Max may have tapped into something otherworldly." But for every scientific or supernatural explanation offered, there were countless people who saw something far simpler and more profound in Max's actions: pure, unconditional love. As John's story spread, other tales of animal heroism began to surface. A cat in Arizona that woke its family during a gas leak, a horse in Montana that led rescuers to its injured rider, a dolphin in Australia that guided a group of stranded swimmers to safety. It seemed Max had sparked a global conversation about the depths of the human-animal bond. People began to look at their own pets differently, wondering what hidden depths of loyalty and intuition might lie behind those trusting eyes. Back at the hospital, John's recovery continued to astound his doctors. "It's nothing short of miraculous," his lead physician admitted. By all medical standards, John should not be alive. Yet here he is, improving every day. Max became a regular visitor to the hospital, not just for John, but for other patients as well. The once rambunctious German Shepherd seemed to have developed an uncanny ability to sense which patients needed him most. He would lie quietly by the bedsides of those in critical condition, offering a comforting presence that no human could quite replicate. One nurse recounted a particularly moving incident. "We had a young girl, terminal cancer. She hadn't spoken or smiled in weeks. Max came in, put his head on her lap, and I can't explain it, but she smiled. She actually laughed. It was like he knew exactly what she needed." As John grew stronger, he and Max formed an inseparable bond. "I owe him my life," John would say, his eyes brimming with tears. How do you repay something like that? The answer, it seemed, was to pay it forward. John, Sarah, and Max began visiting schools and community centers, sharing their incredible story and spreading a message of hope and compassion. Children would crowd around Max, eager to pet the miracle dog. while John spoke of the importance of never giving up, even in the darkest of times. "Max taught me that there's always hope," John would say. "Even when everything seems lost, there might be someone out there fighting for you. You just have to hold on." The impact of their story reached far beyond those personal appearances. Animal shelters across the country reported a surge in adoptions, particularly of older dogs. "People are realizing that every animal has the potential to be a Max," one shelter director noted. "They're giving these dogs a chance they might not have had before." Research institutions, intrigued by Max's inexplicable ability, launched studies into canine sensory perception and its potential medical applications. There was talk of training dogs to detect early signs of coma, to assist in search and rescue operations in new ways, and even to provide early warnings for certain types of seizures or diabetic attacks. As the months passed, the media frenzy began to die down, but the impact of Max's story continued to ripple outward. Families reported spending more time with their pets, taking the time to really connect and appreciate the silent support these animals provide every day. For Sarah, the experience was transformative. "I always loved Max," she said, "but now I see all animals in a completely different light. They're not just pets. They're partners, guardians, maybe even angels in disguise." John, fully recovered and back at work, kept a photo of Max on his desk. "Every time I look at it, I'm reminded of how precious life is," he shared, "and how sometimes it takes a different perspective, a dog's perspective, to really appreciate the miracles around us." Max, for his part, seemed largely unchanged by his brush with fame. He still chased squirrels in the park, still begged for treats, still greeted Sarah at the door each evening with an enthusiastic wag of his tail. But there was something different in his eyes now, a depth, a knowing that hadn't been there before. As for the mystery of how Max knew John was alive, it remained just that, a mystery. Scientists could hypothesize, spiritualists could theorize, but in the end, the true nature of Max's intuition remained elusive, and perhaps that was for the best. In a world that often seems determined to explain away every miracle, to reduce every mystery to cold, hard facts, Max's story stood as a testament to the things that defy explanation. It reminded us that sometimes the most powerful forces in the universe are the ones we feel rather than understand. Love, loyalty, the unbreakable bond between a dog and his human family. These were the true miracles at the heart of Max's story. And as John, Sarah, and Max continued to share their experience with the world, they carry with them a simple yet profound message: open your heart, trust your instincts, and never, ever underestimate the power of a dog's love. For in that love, we might just find the key to unlocking the greatest mysteries of all. The mysteries of life, death, and the unbreakable connections that bind us all together in this vast, wondrous universe. If this story has touched your heart, remember that there are countless animals out there waiting for their chance to be someone's miracle. Consider adopting from your local shelter and opening your home to a furry friend who might just change your life in ways you never imagined. As the sun set on another day, Sarah sat on her porch, Max's head resting contentedly in her lap. She stroked his fur, marveling at the journey they had been through together. "You know, boy," she whispered, "I think we've only scratched the surface of understanding what you can do, what all animals can do, if we just open our eyes and hearts to see it." Max looked up at her, his brown eyes wise and gentle. And in that moment, Sarah felt a certainty that went beyond words, beyond explanation. She knew that whatever challenges life might bring, whatever joys or sorrows lay ahead, she had a guardian angel right here beside her. An angel with fur for paws and a heart big enough to bring a man back from the brink of death. As the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Sarah made a silent promise to Max, to herself, and to the world that had been forever changed by their story. She promised to always listen, to always trust, and to always believe in the extraordinary power of love, whether it comes on 2 legs or 4. For in the end, that's what Max's miracle was truly about. not just saving a life, but reminding us all of the miracles that surround us every day, if we only have the wisdom to see them and the courage to believe. And as Max dozed off, his tail thumping softly against the porch, Sarah knew that their story, the story of a dog who defied death and changed countless lives, would continue to inspire and amaze for years to come. It was a reminder to us all. Sometimes, the greatest heroes come in the most unexpected packages. And sometimes, all it takes to change the world is a bark, a wag, and a love that knows no bounds. In memory and celebration of Max, the dog who showed us that miracles do happen, and that the truest magic in this world often comes with a wagging tail and a wet nose. May we all learn to listen with our hearts, to trust in the unseen, and to believe in the extraordinary power of unconditional love. For in that love, we find not just companionship, but a glimpse of something truly divine, a reminder that in this vast, often bewildering universe, we are never truly alone, not as long as we have the love of a good dog by our side. And so, as our story comes to a close, remember Max, remember John. Remember the power of second chances and the miracles that can happen when we open our hearts to the unexpected. For in the end, it's not about understanding every mystery. It's about embracing the wonder, cherishing the love, and recognizing the everyday miracles that surround us all. And perhaps, just perhaps, learning to see the world through the eyes of a dog who knew that sometimes the greatest act of heroism is simply refusing to give up on those we love. Thank you, Max, for the lives you've touched, the hearts you've healed, and the hope you've given to us all. May your story continue to inspire, to heal, and to remind us all of the incredible bond between humans and animals, a bond that can transcend even the boundaries between life and death. And to all those out there with a furry friend by their side, take a moment to look into their eyes. You might just see a hero looking back at you, a hero with a wagging tail and a heart full of love, ready to work miracles, one bark at a time. And